Yes, cyber attacks, guys, that cost businesses thousands of dollars. And ransomware payments in cryptocurrency are making it more difficult to track the hacks to the source. Datto is a security company that is helping businesses protect that data from hackers. And joining us now is the company's CEO, Austin McCord. Austin, such a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you have described Datto as pretty much the last line of defense. You've exhausted all of your options. This is all you got left. Talk to us a little bit about your strategy when it comes to cybersecurity.
Sure. So we are definitely the last line of defense in backup and disaster recovery, and our big magic trick for small businesses is that we can roll back their infrastructure in a matter of seconds to the time before an attack happens.
And how are you able to do that?
We've got a pretty unique blend of tech that allows us to protect these systems no matter what they are at a small business's site, and a combination between on-prem and the cloud allows us to bring back their systems in just a couple of seconds.
Now, thinking about cryptocurrency and all of the security that's required for it, looking at how businesses are even leveraging the blockchain technology, how is this impacting cybersecurity?
So I think the big thing for cryptocurrency from our perspective is that it's an enabling factor for cyber criminals to go out there and actually really make a ton of money. And in the past, cyber criminals really wanted to disrupt stuff, or they might go after only the biggest of big. But now, it's almost this democratization of IT, and that cyber criminals can now go after the average small business and try to get them on the hook for $500 or maybe $5,000 and collect this money in an untraceable format. And it's caused them to become a lot more aggressive than they were just 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, talking about cybersecurity, the big news story that's been happening, of course, the last couple of weeks has been the hack with HBO. It seems like every day there's a new leak that's happening, whether it's on their social media accounts or whether somebody got something from one of the email accounts. What has been your reaction to the HBO hack? We know HBO has said they're not going to give into the demands of paying these people, these hackers in particular, the cryptocurrency that they're claiming that they want.
I mean, certainly that's the right answer from HBO's perspective, to not give into those demands, but it really just shows kind of how brazen these hackers are these days, and that whole thing can go public, and they really believe that they could grab this cryptocurrency and really get it untraceably.
You just said that's what HBO thinks is the right thing to do. Would you also advise that that's the smart thing to do, is not give in to those cryptocurrency demands?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime that you're doing that, it's money to the enemy. So wherever possible, we advise that people don't give in to those demands, and certainly the products that we sell allow businesses to not have to give in to those demands, because they can roll back to before the attack right away.
Now, where do you see cybersecurity really heading to when we think about even the integration with artificial intelligence as well?
So I think there's a lot of pieces in play on the cybersecurity story, and that data has to be protected in a bunch of different ways. We all know that data has to be protected in transit, whether it's HTTPS and just having secure connections between different pieces of infrastructure, to then protecting that information at rest. And then I think the third leg of that stool is really the part that we do, which is having a plan for when all of that fails and being able to roll back right away and basically restore and continue to operate even if you lose that game.
Now, as technology continues to evolve, there's more things that we're unaware of in terms of security threats in our locations and everything else. So now, as we're talking about the future, and Datto in particular, and looking at us as consumers, how worried should we be about cybersecurity down the road? Is this something that's going to be, hackers are going to become more educated and more complex and more, everything down the road? How worried should we be about cybersecurity in the future?
I mean, I think it should definitely be a concern, and it's a business-ending concern. Like at a lot of small businesses, if they don't have a good plan, it can put them out of business. I think there's a good news story here in that there are lots of experts and really good things available to small businesses so that they can defend themselves. It's unlikely that a small business is in a position to set up their infrastructure alone in a way where they're actually really protected. And that's where there's actually this new type of small business out there called a managed service provider that is actually doing outsourced IT for all these small businesses. And I would highly recommend that any small business that's not working with one move to one, because they actually have the resources and the skills to hire people who really can stay ahead of the curve on a security basis.
But on that note, I mean, it makes sense. I understand why hackers would want to go after somebody like HBO, especially if it's Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
It's involving a show that a lot of people are obsessed with. But I'm curious your thought as to why would hackers be interested in going after a small business? What would be the methodology behind that? Because in theory, small businesses might not have the money that an HBO might be able to have to pay the ransom for it. They might not have something that the hackers would potentially want. But I mean, I like the idea of being secure for a small business, but what would a small business have that hackers would want?
They have money. And I mean, the thing is, you look at the HBO story, HBO can involve the FBI. I'm sure there's lots of really smart, talented people looking into this, trying to track down these hackers and get them. But when they're going out and going in mass and saying, hey, I want $500 at a clip, that's really hard to get law enforcement involved. It's really hard to kind of get a real structure to go back and go after that hacker. There's very little consequences for them. And for a small business, either they have their IT infrastructure and they're able to stay open, or they don't. And they're not in a position where I'm sure HBO has a bunch of contingency plans and stories and process to get around it, whereas a small business probably isn't prepared to deal with the potential costs of basically losing that infrastructure. Right. And so $500 ends up being a small cost to pay. And then you exacerbate it further that the vast majority of small businesses that get attacked by this stuff don't even report it because they're embarrassed.